everyone. Welcome to the Bullcast Podcast. I'm Katie Pickler, and with me today, we have an interesting group. They're wonderful. You should be so excited. Of course, I have with me Cameron Spann.
Hello.
And I've got Nicole.
Hey.
Nicole's here. And we've got a special guest. Just know there's a special guest here. You're going to meet her in a second. Yes, you know she's a her now, so I've already teased that. But we've got a fun episode. We do have a special guest, a talent manager. Ooh. But before we get into that, this is going to be a list of TV shows centered around employment. And so because I know you were eager to know, who is this lady? Who is this her that is a talent manager? Who's behind this? So we will go through our list and then we'll get to the meat and potatoes that we haven't said in a while.
Oh, wow. Yeah.
The meat of the show. So TV shows centered around employment.
Number one is The Office, obviously. I love The Office. That makes me such a millennial, though.
Still never seen it.
Do you have a favorite episode?
Oh, man. Probably Dinner Party, where they go to Jan's house. And that's the one where they have a little TV and the Dundee Award, and it's amazing. I love that one. And Benihana Christmas is a good one, too. But yeah, it's just a documentary-style show. It originated in Britain, and then America, we made a spin-off version. But yeah, it's just office workers and their quirky antics. You've got Michael and Dwight and Jim, Pam, the whole crew. It's amazing.
Everybody.
And it's one of those shows where you can pick it up at any episode and just watch it. Kind of like Friends. You don't have to start from the beginning.
Oh, Matthew Perry.
Oh, man. Yeah.
So sad.
So sad.
Moment of silence. Parks and Rec is the next one on this list. I think that's kind of, a lot of people will talk about Office and then Parks and Rec.
I know Nicole
This is
loves
my favorite
Parks and
show.
Rec.
Then talk about it for a second. You got it.
I've seen it 1,000 times, and just every character is elite. Lil Sebastian is the best. He's a little pony that dies, and R.I.P. Lil Sebastian. 3,000 Candles in the Wind. Katie, have you never seen this show?
I've seen a couple episodes. This is the one that has Leslie.
Yes.
Yep.
Yeah, so I had a friend
Nicole.
tell me that I'm like Leslie.
I can see that. I'll be Anne.
I'll be wrong.
I feel like I avoid watching these two shows just because it kind of irritates y'all.
It does irritate me very much. I'll take the next one. This is very different from the previous two. Severance. It's on Apple TV. I'm not sure if anyone's seen it.
It's low-key an amazing
It
show.
is the best show.
It is.
One of the best shows I've seen lately. It's a sci-fi thriller about a group of office workers who have undergone a procedure to divide their memories between their work and personal lives.
I've been wanting to check this out. It sounds interesting.
Yeah, so it's
you
like-
really are two different people.
Yeah, it's like they walk into the office and their brain like just distorts and they become this human. When they leave the office, they don't know anything about what they do at work.
Oh, I feel like this is a podcast in its own of like, what would that be like to completely like separate? Because you talk about like bringing your work home or bringing your home life into work. Ooh.
It's got a great season 1 finale.
Yeah, the finale is just like jaw-dropping, like big cliffhanger. We're patiently waiting for season 2.
Okay, this next one is Suits, which I just finished Suits not that long ago before it came to Netflix, and now it's like huge everywhere.
Is this the Meghan Markle show?
Meg-
Okay, I've never seen it.
It is. She is in the show. It is not her.
I've never
show.
seen it.
It's really good. It's about an attorney's office, and so it kind of gives you a little bit of like Denny Crane and like all different aspects of some of the. Because there's always been attorney shows out there, but it's really fun. But yes, Meghan Markle is in it, but I wouldn't say she's one of the main characters. She's a recurring role, but
I'll have to say, I thought the show was called Suits because they wore suits for the longest
Is it
time.
not?
No, it's because it's a short word for lawsuit. Blew my mind when I heard that.
I thought it was because they wear suits.
Okay, I'm not the only one.
I mean, they do wear dapper suits. They look really good all the time.
Yeah.
Who's next?
You.
Cool. Yeah. Superstore. Have y'all seen Superstore? It's a comedy. It's funny.
I haven't seen it, but it's on my list.
It's almost like The Office in Parks. It's documentary style about a big store like a Target or Walmart or Big Lots or something. And
Yeah.
it's hysterical. It's a comedy.
I'll watch it next. But next on the list is Mad Men, and I also have
I
not seen this show.
love it. Oh, it's amazing.
One of the greats.
I like it because it's taking place and it's a ad agency, but it hits on major milestones that also would have happened at that time, like Kennedy and things like that. So then you really are embracing that. And just Don Draper is absolutely amazing. John Hamm, so good.
And just the era it takes place in.
Yeah, it's just the fashion is fantastic. They're talking about trying to sell like cigarettes and, different kind of products that you're like, marketing is totally different now.
I feel bad for not seeing that show now.
You need to watch it. It's
my
you,
field.
especially with your world. Yeah, you need to watch it.
Okay, I will
Okay.
watch it.
Abbott Elementary.
Have you seen it?
No.
It's about teachers. It's a newer show. It's
I've
funny.
heard a lot about it.
This is also on my list that I will get to
Okay.
eventually.
Yeah, I think it takes place in Philadelphia. It's like the struggles of inner city public schools and the teachers, and it's a
Yeah.
comedy. It's
It's
funny.
hilarious. I've heard it's hilarious, and they've won a bunch of Emmys. So
Very cool. And the last on the list.
Brooklyn Nine-Nine. Have y'all seen it?
No.
It's
Cops?
good. Yeah, it's Cops in New York. And I hesitated to watch it for the longest time because it's one of those shows everybody watched. I was like, I don't want to watch it because y'all are watching it, like you with The Office.
Yeah, me. Yeah.
But it turns out it's funny. Andy Samberg is funny.
Okay, I'll have to check it out. Pop culture is really embracing trying to relate and understand the different workforce, because obviously when you go to work for somebody, you kind of become a family, whether it's dysfunctional or not. It's your family mates, it's your coworkers. So that ties perfectly into Cam, who is our secret guest.
Our guest, I am pleased to announce that it is Nelli Golmeeva from GTG, or Grinder Tabor Grinder, which is a local contractor.
Hi, everybody, by the way. We are a commercial general contractor.
Okay, yeah.
A lot of cool work. I'm going to say this. When I started working for them, I didn't really know who they were. And then, just kind of learning about all the different projects they've done. Now I drive around town. I'm like, oh, my company did this and this. And like, I act like I was the one who somehow was in charge of building all these projects so many years ago. But it's definitely really cool, especially like going to crosstown concourse, like especially when I have like visitors, I'll bring them into town and I'll be like, oh, look at that. And we have it's called a founder's column. I think it's right around where they had the art gallery. And so I will walk over there. I'm like, I work for that company.
Cool. Yeah, I was on y'all's website earlier today, and the stuff you've guys have done, it's like the Orpheum, Ballet Memphis, Crosstown Concourse, Roads. I mean, you've done so many different projects. It's amazing. You're a staple in Memphis.
Very, very much so. And we do so many projects that, the public will say doesn't see. And that's what keeps us busy and that's what keeps us going. And I'll say pay the bills, right? But the signature projects are definitely the ones that you get to brag about. So
that's cool.
It's really cool.
Well, let's get to know you. Tell us a little bit about yourself and how you came to Grinder Tabor Grinder.
Yeah, absolutely. So I actually moved out to Denver after finishing my associate's degree at a community college. I grew up in Champaign, Illinois, did not want to go to the University of Illinois. I was like, oh, everybody goes there.
Is it the Illini? Is that what?
Fighting Illini.
Oh, Illini. So that's how you say it. I've always wondered.
Yeah. So if you're from Illinois, you say Illinois. If you're not from Illinois, you say Illinois with an S at the end. So you can always identify the people.
That's cool. All right. So you didn't want to go there. You didn't want to do like hometown college.
Yeah. And let's be clear, it's a huge university, but it's one of those where like half your high school goes to, and you're like, oh, I want to be cool and different. So moved out to Denver, attended the University of Denver. That's where I finished up my bachelor's degree in business management, and I had a focus in hospitality management. And I will say that was my first experience with a really amazing recruiter. So my story goes, I finished my associates, didn't really know what I wanted to do. I just knew that I always wanted to open my own restaurant. And I'm like, okay, so it makes sense to have a business degree if you want to own your own business. And so I looked at a bunch of different schools, and so many schools that had this hospitality degree, it wasn't part of the business school. Like one of the local schools, it was part of a agriculture school. Like it just didn't make sense why a hospitality program would be part of this. So I went online, did the millennial thing where I Googled like top 10 schools to go to for hospitality programs. So gave me the list. I literally went through, emailed all 10 schools, and had 3 questions, something along the lines of like, what's your transfer process look like? How much is, out-of-state tuition? And I don't remember what the third one was, but sent 10 emails to 10 different schools. 5 of them never responded.
Oh.
Out of the other 5 that did respond, 3 basically were like, here's the website. You can find more information there. I'm like, this is crap.
Yeah.
And the only one, and they made the best impression on me, was DU. I heard back from a counselor. She reached out. She went bullet by bullet, answered all of my questions that I had with more information, and said, hey, let's schedule a call. I want to talk to you. I want to see if we're the right school for you. And it was just the whole experience. I mean, she helped me schedule the college visit. So I flew out there, did a college visit, really liked the campus. I met with her while I was there for my visit after we had talked on the phone. And she's like, whatever you need. I'm like, well, this is a private university. It's a little pricey. I want to make sure that I can afford it. She's like, no problem. I'll literally help you apply for financial aid, for merit aid, whatever it is. We want you here. And after that experience, I was just like, A, I don't want to go anywhere else, but B, this is somebody that made me feel so welcome and so like I want to be here. It really just kind of inspired, and I always kind of, when I recruit people, when I talk to people, especially when I talk to college students, that's kind of the person that I reference in the back of my, I don't even remember her name anymore. I feel so bad. But that's kind of the experience that I reference for myself, that feeling of like being welcomed and being wanted to be a part of, this institution. So going to school there was an amazing experience. The hospitality program there is very highly rated. The dean is amazing. His name is Dr. Corson. He does so much. And the other thing that he taught us that I now reference for myself in my career, professional career, is getting out there and making connections in whatever fashion, just participating in as much as you can. So he did an amazing job with getting us students scholarships that if we wanted to attend different professional organizations, or if we wanted to attend trade shows, or really anything, just to get out there to meet with people in the industry, meet with recruiters, get ourselves resources to be successful in our future careers once we graduate. Because that was the other thing that I really liked about DU, was that they boasted, I think, in like a 96 or 98% placement rate 6 months after graduation into a job.
Wow.
And that's huge. I mean, a lot of schools that I talk to when I interview schools for, recruiting their students, some of them can't even tell me what that placement rate looks like. And to me, I'm like, if you're going to college, aren't you trying to then get a job? Shouldn't the college's responsibility be to get you those opportunities after graduation? And so Dr. Corson did a really good job of getting the students connected, getting us out into all the networking events, all the industry events. And whenever we would go, that was one of the things. He's like, go to everything, go to every workshop, participate, engage, raise your hand, talk to people, meet with people, and then follow up. If you do get that business card, send an email, put in a connection request on LinkedIn. You just never know how that introduction, that opportunity is going to lead to something else. And so I had an amazing time. I loved it. I'm going to sing praises forever and ever to the school and Dr. Corson for his work. He still continues to do that, which is really neat. But after I graduated, stayed in Denver for about, say, 6 years after. I worked. I loved it. Bought a house out there. It was really, truly an amazing experience. And I tell everybody, I'm like, that's back home. Whenever I'm ready to go back home, that's going to be Denver for me. But pandemic was a big, life change, if you will. We're all on lockdown. At the time, I was working for Waffle House as a recruiting director for the state of Colorado. And we got, we'll say, furloughed, not laid off, but furloughed for a time. So I kind of sat at home, everything was on lockdown. You can do anything. And I'm a social person. Like, I love to talk to people. I love to get it. That's, part of the job. That's what I really enjoyed. And not being able to do that, I was like, oh my God, when will this end? Let me out. So, so when I did finally get out, one of the way that Waffle House recruits, I like to make the analogy of it's like getting recruited into a frat or a sorority, where like you don't go on a website to apply, you have to get invited to be part. And that was my job. Is I got to be the recruiter. I would go out and I would meet people that I thought would be good to be a part of this organization, and let them know about the career opportunities that we had and kind of the money that they could make and how they could grow the company and things like that. And during the pandemic and post-lockdown, where, businesses weren't open for you to walk into, people were working from home, and nobody wanted you to walk around and hand out cards and shake hands. It was, you had to figure out a different way, had to adapt. So yeah, that was about, we'll say 2020 to 2021. That year was weird to figure out.
That's one way to put it.
Yeah. What to do with, you had all these rules, you had all these techniques, you had all these strategies, and all of a sudden you just tossed it all out the window, and now you have to figure out something completely different. You had to adapt. It was the winter, January of 2021. I was like, oh my gosh, like, I don't know what to do. Like, I feel like a fish out of water. I've known how to do all of this, and now I don't. And so random, but saw an email come through that was like, hey, they would usually send out for certain salary positions, they would send out an internal email for people to invite them to apply first before, sourcing it out to external candidates. And an email came through and they were like, oh, we're looking for a recruiting director in Memphis. And it was a bigger territory with a higher salary. And at the time, literally like a month prior, my dad it wasn't COVID, but he did catch a really bad cold, and we were all concerned that it was COVID. good. And I was like, man, I'm like 15 hours away from my family. Flying is weird. Driving is long. Memphis is 6 hours away, and it's a pay raise. maybe I should consider this. And so, I applied for reference. Never been to Memphis before. Never seen it. Only heard bad things. I was like, oh God, what am I doing here? But they flew me out. I met the team. I drove around. Literally, they flew me out. It was like a Thursday, and then my flight back was on a Sunday. And so I got 2 days to drive around in my little rental and got to see Memphis on my own. It was a very interesting experience because I went to Beale Street and there were 3 people out and everything was closed. I was like, oh my God, what is this? But I liked it. It was something different, it was something new, and I really liked the team. So I was like, you know what? Let's just do it. Last year, I probably would have been like, absolutely not. I would never leave Denver in my life. And now a year later after the pandemic, I was like, I want to do something new. I want to experience this. So
it's kind of a gut feeling you had.
Yeah. It was more of like a head feeling where your head's like, let's do crazy things.
Let's leave the mountains for the Delta.
Yeah. And so I moved out in March, and it's been a wonderful experience. I honestly am so glad I took the chance. It's been incredibly rewarding. I will forever sing praises about Memphis and the opportunities that I got here. It's a different experience. I never lived in the South. Again, when you grow up in a certain area or you only hear about certain, places, you just make assumptions.
Right.
And I have not entirely proven wrong, but almost everything that I've heard, I have not had that experience. Or I have looked back and said, you know what? Bad things happen, but they happen everywhere. And I've only experienced great things here. Memphis has been amazing for me.
That's really good to hear.
Yeah.
I got to ask, when you came to visit, what other things did you do? Like, what Memphis things did you see?
Yeah, so obviously Beale Street. So I had, because after my 2 days, I called up my best friend. She's kind of I bounced my ideas off of her. And I was like, hey, I really like the team. The salaries make sense. I think all in all, this is a great move for me. And she's like, cool, well, while you're here, you should probably look for a place to live. I was like, that's a great idea. So I went online and I made a list of apartment places that I wanted to live in, and literally drove around to those apartments first. Just at the time, you can schedule a visit.
Yeah.
So just kind of going from outside, looking to see was the outside of the building looking nice.
What's the area around it?
Yeah, exactly. And that's exactly what I would do. I would drive to the apartment, and then I would just turn off my GPS and drive around kind of in a couple block area just to see what's there. And I hiked I walked around Shelby Farms.
Good.
Nice.
It was wonderful. I was like, this is a great experience.
That's something we're very proud of, Shelby Farms.
Oh, it's beautiful. I got to see the buffalo. Like in the misty, it was like raining, but it was like misty. Oh my gosh, it was so cool. And then Overton Square, again, everything was kind of closed down, but I still, parked my car, just kind of walked around. I was like, this is really cute. And my first apartment here, I ended up living like 2-3 blocks away from Overton Square.
Oh, cool.
Oh, nice.
And like a block away from Overton Park, right in that heart of Midtown. Loved it. We lived there for 2 years now, and we just actually just bought a house over by University of Memphis.
Cool. Nice.
But I miss that area so much. If I could go back, it was amazing. It was honestly the best. I wanted to live downtown, but having lived in Midtown for the last 2 years, I'd say Midtown is the way to go.
Yep.
Yeah.
Where is GTG located, like its office?
Yeah, so we are off of Linfield and Quinns.
Okay, yeah.
We're kind of tucked in off of Poplar over there. Also a great neighborhood, if you want to go walk around. I know one of my coworkers, he runs during his lunch break. So
Nice.
he runs kind of all around the neighborhood out there, and he really likes it.
Okay, so give me like a day in the life of what it's like your job at GTG.
Like, what is your actual job? What do you get to do?
Because talent manager is a super cool title.
Yeah, got to invent that title for myself.
No way.
Nice.
So this is a fun story. The way that I ended up at Grinder Tabor, so I had worked for, Waffle House moved me here. I worked for them for a year, and I was just, I'll be honest, I was struggling a little bit because I didn't have the network that I had back in Denver that I could rely on for recruiting, and it was still weird lockdown time. So like career fairs are a really good example where like I shine, right? At career fairs, I just rope in the kids, make eye contact with them, like, you come over here, grab, a waffle coupon, and we get that conversation going. And you don't have the same energy when it's virtual. Kids also don't have the same requirement to attend a virtual fair. It's so much easier to not attend something when you don't have to go out of your house, if you will. So everything at the time was still fairly virtual. We weren't really allowed on campus for events. And so for that year, I was really struggling. I'm like, man, I can't hit my numbers. I can't recruit. And like, maybe I should look for something else, because I felt like I wasn't succeeding, and that was really weighing on me. So started kind of looking around for other opportunities, and one of my best friends here, her name is Heather, she was actually leaving teaching to kind of transition to a new career opportunity. And she mentioned to me that she's like, oh yeah, you know, I interviewed with this company. I really like them. They do construction here in Memphis. I was like, oh, that's, you know, from teaching, that's kind of a switch, but hey, more power to you, right? And so she accepted the offer that they gave her, and, you know, we're just kind of chatting, and she's like, yeah, you know, during my interview, they mentioned if I would be open to kind of helping them with hiring, because they're hiring more people, and the owners cannot keep up. And I was like, well, I do this. You know? I'm a recruiter. And she's like, do you want me to send in your resume over? I was like, yes, please. So she sent my resume off to Brett Grinder. I hear back almost immediately from him, and he's like, hey, you know, we'd love to chat with you. And so he and I chatted a little bit. He invited me in to meet the team. And I honestly was just kind of like, you know, I never say no to an interview. If I get invited to interview for a job, I never say no. It's always great to keep that skill up, to see how other people interview, what the process is like. So it's always kind of a learning opportunity for me. So I was like, yeah, absolutely. Know nothing about construction. I'm going to be honest. I looked up the company like 10 minutes before my interview. I was like, all right, who are these people? What do they do? And I saw Crosstown Concourse. I'm like, okay, I want to work for these people. Like, I like this place. I didn't even know that they were involved with that before. Crosstown was one of the places that when I was driving around, I did not stop there, but I made myself a mental note that I was like, I'm going to come back to this place if I end up moving to Memphis. And I did. And I thought it was really
wow.
cool. That's so cool. So I was like, okay, yeah, like these guys are cool. Like they worked on this. So I get there, and I admitted this in my interview because I thought it was funny. I didn't make the connection that Brett Grinder was one of the grinders. And it wasn't until I like pulled up into the parking lot and I saw the like Grinder Tabor sign. I was like, oh,
You're Grinder.
You're that Grinder. your name's on the sign outside. Yeah. So I went in, chatted with them, really liked the guys, really liked the energy. They were like, hey, you know, we've never had this person before that helped us with hiring. We've always done it ourselves, but we're too busy. We got a lot going on. And, you know, what can you bring to the table? And I was like, well, I can do a lot, but I need to know what you want from me, like what your expectations are. What are the problems that you want me to solve? Because, yeah, I can come in and I can hire people, but I don't want to just dump a bunch of candidates on your desk and say, here you go. I want to make sure that whoever we hire, they're a good match. And not everybody's perfect. Sometimes people, you know, they sell themselves as more than they are. Sometimes people are a great match, and then something in life happens, you know, they can't make the move, or it's not the right opportunity, or whatever it may be. So it's just like, you know, just let's set clear expectations that I'm not going to like magically solve your problems. I'm not capable of, you know, if your industry is struggling with lack of talent or a small talent pool, like I'm not capable of just like magicking people out of the air. But they were very understanding of all of that, and they were like, yeah, you know, let's see what you can do. And so they made me a great offer, and I get to work with my best friend now. I get to see her every day. We try to have lunch as much as we can. She stays pretty busy. But when I came on board, I knew nothing about construction. It took me probably about 6 months to get really comfortable with, like, I tell everybody, I'm like, now I'm at the point where when people tell me something, I know not exactly, but almost exactly what they're talking about. And I can tell when they're BSing me a little bit. Because prior to this, you know, people are throwing out all these industry terms. I'm like, yeah, that sounds great. I'm like, I have no idea. I'm like writing it down so I can Google it later, or like ask somebody about it later. But now I'm gotten to the point where I'm like, okay, like I think I know what you're referring to, and you know, what you're trying to sell yourself as versus what you actually do. So I've gotten comfortable with that. But when they brought me on board, they were like, I mean, you had a director title. Do you want the same title? I was like, I don't really care. But since I'm going to be a recruiter, I don't want, you know, my title to be like VP of people operations or something ridiculous. And then, you know, a college kid's getting an email from a VP of people ops. Like that's a little silly. So I wanted it to be something. And the other thing too is I'm not just a recruiter. You know, once we bring people in, I want to make sure that we keep them, right? What is retention? What other opportunities do we have to keep the talent that we have? Because honestly, replacing talent is so expensive and so cumbersome and so time consuming. if you can keep your good people, you can keep them happy, keep them engaged, keep them well paid, and just honestly create an environment where they don't even want to take that interview with somebody else, right? Yeah. That's another part of my job, because honestly, as owners, those guys just don't have the time to, meet with every single person every single time and get all the feedback. They're running around, they're doing so much. So I tried to, again, not only bring in the talent, but keep the talent that we have. So I was like, what can I don't want to be HR. I don't want people to get the impression that, I'm here to punish them every time I reach out to them. And so that was kind of the title that I cooked up for myself. I was like, hey, are you guys okay with me being a talent manager? Because I think I felt that kind of encompassed everything, or a little bit of everything that I do on a daily basis. And so I'm the talent manager.
I love that, because it's really cool, because then you're able to really like bring somebody in and then be kind of that person that you're not working with them every day, but they know they've got somebody they can talk to, they can check in with. It's not the seriousness of HR, but just more companies need to do that. That's great, because we've talked about before the issue of what COVID did and how employment, and it's hard to find people because there's a lot of people who are just not going into different fields. They're not wanting to go into this in different industries. And then you had a ton of people retire because of COVID. And so now it's trying to fill that. And then it's just making sure that you weed through keeping people happy, but then also the culture and making sure you've got the right people working together, because that's something we've talked about a ton, is just balancing that out. So do you kind of have a structure that, hey, I'm going to touch base with these people at certain points, or is it more just kind of natural? Just
right now we're kind of leaving it up to the employees to check in, and if they have questions, and I let them know, I'm like, hey guys, if you ever feel like anything, whether you're super happy, you're super upset, whatever it may be, let me know. Sometimes I call it the princess in a tower syndrome, where a lot of people wait to be rescued, where they wait to be brought in to the room to be given an appraisal. They wait to be recognized for their work. They wait to get that pay raise. And truth be told, only you know how hard you work. Mm-hmm. I mean, there is no way that any company, even the most, the biggest companies out there, the most robust companies, they have no great way of tracking, all of the productivity that goes on that you do on a daily basis. So waiting to be recognized is kind of a silly notion, I think. You're really punishing yourself. And I realize sometimes it can be a little hard to just be like, kick down the door and be like, I want a pay raise. I deserve more.
I work so hard. Give me more money.
Exactly. So I try to tell people, I'm like, if you're not comfortable, let's go into this together. I'll be your buddy, right? I'll help you out. And within reason, at the end of the day, I'm like, you, the employee, you're not the one signing my paycheck, right? But at the same time, I don't want to lose you. Like, I don't want to have to replace you. So I try to be that advocate that says, all right, let's review your options. And not that I ever encourage anybody to, I'm like, all right, get out of here, go find somewhere else to work. But sometimes the issues that people have with the company, it truly is with the culture or the owners, the boss, whatever, the manager. Sometimes getting more money to stay is not worth it for everybody. And so sometimes you have to help people really think through those. Like, is it an issue of, I'll make a little bit more money and I'll be happier because then I afford to take an extra vacation? Or am I unhappy because of the culture in the company or the work expectations or communication styles or whatever it may be? So sometimes you got to talk to people and ask them, kind of walk them through and help them realize, am I going to be happy here or not? And is it a here or is it a what? And like, what's the issue that's causing me to be unhappy? So sometimes, helping people realize that maybe we're not the perfect workplace, because you can't be. Right. You can't be the perfect place for everybody. No, so again, all kind of feeds into retaining and taking care of your talent. So.
Yeah.
Let's talk about the flip side of it. And you hit on it a little bit earlier. When you're looking to acquire talent, you're trying to fill a role. Have you found a tried and true way to like really know if it's the right person? I say that because like when we're trying to hire people, we use like Indeed or whatever, Indeed.com. And of course they're going to knock their interview out of the park because that's what people do, even if it means like lying or just just like putting on your best self. And then they get into the position. It's like, you're not who I interviewed. Like, have you found a good way to really dive in before you hire these people to see who they like really are and what their work ethic is?
There's no perfect answer for that because every position is going to be different. What you need from your accountant is not going to be the same thing you're going to need from your sales guy, not the same thing that you need from your maintenance guy, right? So every position requires different skill sets. And I find that a lot of employers fail to interview for different positions. I think they come in with their set of 10 questions that are the same for everybody. And again, what you're asking of your accountant versus your sales guy are going to be two completely different things. So I think that's a big consideration to make is, adjusting your interview for the different positions, recognizing the skill sets that are needed. I think sometimes people, what they think is important versus what is actually important in a job are going to be different things. So I'll give you an example. Like as a recruiter, in my opinion, your recruiter should be your best salesperson. I sell the job. I sell the company. I'm the best company rep out there for Grinder Taper, for example, right? And so I go to a lot of career fairs and I meet a lot of, I'm going to call them recruiters, but they're not recruiters. They're sitting behind the desk. They're not making eye contact. They're not chatting people up. They're not inviting the candidates to come and talk to them. They're not selling. They're not selling themselves. They're not selling the company. They're not being a proactive salesperson. And so if your job description says, 10 years of recruiting experience, but you meet somebody who is shy and uncomfortable with talking and, you ask them, how do you feel about if tomorrow we close down our recruiting department and we want to keep you and we want to put you into sales, how do you feel about that? And they're like, oh my gosh, would never do sales in my life. Well, there's your answer. Right? You found somebody who's not comfortable with that. And so I think recognizing the skills that are required, the skills that are necessary, and then, modifying those interview questions to fit. And I do listen to what people tell you. I think a lot of people, when they ask questions, they have a specific answer that they're looking to hear from people. And let's be very clear, most people at this point have, if they're worth their money, they've kind of figured out the right answers to give. Mm-hmm. So listen for what's in between those answers, like what's in between the lines. What are people telling you? And sometimes I find that if you just let people, they will tell you everything. I mean, it's amazing. If you just stay quiet long enough, they will start talking and you're like, oh dear Lord, I did not need to know that. Thank you so much. That became very personal very quickly. Oof. But people will tell you. And I think a lot of us just don't create enough silence to allow people to talk. But if you let them, people will tell you a lot of things that you need to know. And, I think there is a huge value in meeting people, face to face and sitting them down in the same room and just even chatting about, sometimes I will say more personal questions. You can't ask people, how old you are and, how many kids do you have and what disabilities you have and, know what's not legal to ask. But, you can just, hey, how was your day? What'd you do this weekend? Like, what are you excited about tomorrow? I don't know, just something very light and very easy and watch how people, what they talk about, what they mention, how they talk about it. Again, if you need somebody who wants to do sales and they give you a yes or no short response and they don't want to engage and they're not friendly, well, maybe you just, they might look good on paper and they might ace that interview with all the right answers to your questions. But if they're not friendly and pleasant about it, then there you go.
Yeah, Court, who's not in here, and myself, we are in charge of finding people, filling in roles. And so we'll do the initial interview. And I've learned over the years that, Court will usually give the intro spiel about it. But before I ask any questions related to the job, I'm just like, tell me about yourself. Just what do you enjoy doing? Because you can just feel this sigh of relief. And then you really get to know the real them instead of them being on edge the whole time. It's just like, okay, they want to know about me. Let's get real here. And that's been very helpful.
I try to keep it concise, but I'm one of those people who just I'll talk to a wall and I'll keep on talking. Sometimes I gotta like cut it back when I realize the person's like, okay, this is 20 minutes past our scheduled interview time, right? But I had an hour and a half long interview one time for a job, and I loved the job. It was wonderful. But one of the questions I got asked was, what is your spirit animal and why?
Yes, I love those kind of questions.
Good one.
Completely off the wall, totally random. And I think it was a fun conversation. And, I answered what mine was, which is a raccoon, if you're curious.
Very good.
I was very curious.
And then, I asked my interviewer what his was. We had a whole long conversation about animals for about, 15 minutes. But it was just that, like, how do we talk about it? What are we talking about? And how comfortable, because it was a sales and recruiting role. So I had to be ready for the weird off the wall questions and be ready to roll with it. So yeah, that was probably the best wild question that I got asked.
Love that. Love it.
I think too many times we forget that interviews are both sides. Like they're seeing who you are and you're seeing who they are. And I liked how you said it's making sure you're tailoring it to that specific role. And I think that I know we've been in situations where we've interviewed multiple people and it's like we've learned from the previous interview of like, okay, well, we didn't really like that aspect of that person. Now, how do we figure out how to make sure this person doesn't have that same kind of thing? And yeah, so I mean, I think that's really interesting of trying to like change it up and make sure you remember like, hey, this is why, this is who we want. This is what it is. This is what we want them to walk away knowing about us. And then, kind of bounce that off each other and listening. That is what our job is, or my job for sure. Most of the time I just sit there and listen to clients. I walk in and I'm like, okay, so tell me why you're here. Because they may have written down on the email or told our receptionist, I want to come in and talk about opening an account. But then when we get to it, it's like they're needing help with budgeting or they've got credit card debt or something like that. And so too many people, I think it's just like, let's get in, get out. And it's just, listen, we were given 2 ears and 1 mouth, but a lot of times we let our mouths run a lot more than we listen.
Yeah, it's very easy to run over the candidate, especially if they're nervous. I'm sure everybody can agree here. You can catch somebody else's nervousness and then you get nervous. And you're sitting there like, why do I have an anxiety attack? I'm interviewing here, I'm in the position of power. But so it's easy for you to start filling in your own silences. So creating that space to let people tell you. And I find too, like if you have that question, my favorite is like, oh, well, we see they have so many different jobs or they weren't in a position for long enough and maybe they're not the right candidate, right? We made that assumption just because of, whatever. Ask the question. Holding back and making assumptions, you're just kind of shooting yourself in the foot. Ask the question. Now, again, know what the legal questions are. There are certain questions we can't ask in the interview, but, hey, do you mind explaining, your previous work history? And if something seems a little bit off, one of my favorite kind of little red flags that I like to dig a little deeper into if I can is people say, oh, well, I left that job because of workplace fit or the environment wasn't right. And every once in a while you get bad bosses, you get bad environments and, you got to go. Sometimes though, especially if it starts to become a pattern that I'm like, oh, I think you are the competent. Not every workplace, not every single boss is terrible. But you seem to leave, everywhere because of bad environment or, the job wasn't a fit or what have you. And I'm like, I think you might be the issue here. So, kind of asking those questions instead of making assumptions. And sometimes people, I will tell you this, when I notice a pattern of, this is small industry. There's only so many companies that do what we do, that do, residential construction or industrial, what have you. And so especially here in Memphis, if I see candidates that are from Memphis and, they worked for either a competitor or similar company, and I've noticed there's 2 or 3 people from that company that have applied to work with us recently, right? My first red flag is like, are they closing?
Yeah.
Did they go through? So I start to ask, why are you leaving? What's the story here? Because sometimes it's hey, they went through a leadership change and that leadership change, it was not good. One person might say that and be like, but if 3 people told you that their leadership change was not good, then it really was, there was some kind of an issue there. So that's something that I pick up on or try to pick up on as well, especially in a small industry like we have. Like, is there something going on? Is somebody closing? Is somebody going out of business? Is somebody, brand new boss, owner, and now they're not good? Little things like that, because that does come back to us as well. Are we going to pick up more business? Are we going to lose a subcontractor that's worked for us for a long time? Or maybe, we have a lot of work with them and all of a sudden half of their office staff quit. It's not going to impact the work that they're going to do for us. Those are the little things that, like, in the back end, you kind of are like, yeah, gotta keep that in mind.
It sounds like your job, like you're almost a therapist or psychologist, like a lot of listening and a lot of pointed questions and a lot of people like telling you their personal information, and you're like, very interesting.
Yeah,
That's
for sure.
funny.
Yeah,
for sure.
But I definitely like how, I mean, specifically what you were saying with the grinders, how they knew that they were so busy and they knew they were better spent running the business, making sure things were done, and that they needed to outsource. They needed to have somebody like you who could really be the voice, be the reason of finding these right people. And I think that's the issue is sometimes with companies, whether it's funds or just not knowing, they try and handle everything. And sometimes the best person to sell your brand and sell your company and find the right people isn't necessarily the head guys. It's, they need to keep doing what they're doing to keep making, everything run. So I think that's something I want people to take away from this as well, is like your role is a very valuable role that most every company should have.
Something that I look at just for myself, keeping up with business, what's going on in the world, a biggest sign for me that companies aren't doing so hot or things are about to change is usually, so I think most companies view HR and talent management, recruitment, all of that as a cost center, right? Like everybody's like, oh, well, we're just wasting money on these people. And so usually companies, when they start to cut, that's the first department that goes. They always trim the recruiters. They're like, oh, if we're not going to be hiring, we're going to get rid of all of our recruiters, and then we're going to cut back our HR. And because, again, companies look at that as this is a cost center. And I think, in recent times, recently, there really has been a shift. And I'm gonna credit Gen Z really for a lot of that push for, creating workplaces that are equitable and inclusive and, really looking at how companies take care of that. But somebody has to work to create those workplaces. They don't just happen. And when companies, again, look at HR and talent and all of those, that entire department, the people department will say, when companies look at that as a cost center and they don't value it, well, what's the cost of, having bad employees? What's the cost of not having employees and not being able to pick up the extra business? Or what are bad people costing you? A lot of times companies can't put a number on it, but they can put a number on the salary of, the talent manager. And they'll say, well, you cost us this much, you need to go. Honestly, the worst thing that a company can do for themselves is to hire urgently and make a hiring decision that's pressed, because we are no longer considering, hey, is this really the best candidate for us? We're looking at it as we need this person to fill, we need that warm body in the room to fill that open seat. We need them. We don't even care if that person produces at 10% versus, a perfect candidate would produce at 80%. We don't care. We just need that person to produce. We just need somebody in there. And that person's probably not going to work out. They're going to leave you, and they might even do a lot of damage before they leave. I see, when I go to career fairs, I see some companies that, they see their talent management team as a value, as a resource, as an investment. Those are the guys that have great recruiters. They're active recruiters. They're salespeople. They have great pamphlets. Their tables are well set up. They're really selling themselves. They can talk to you about what the company does. They can tell you what the benefits are. They're really putting everything out there for the candidate to make themselves attractive. And especially students, they want to see that. They have all those questions. What does your company care about? How do you guys do things? What's the pay? What are the benefits? Things like that. And truly the companies that care and invest into their talent teams, they get the best students. They get the best talent out of the candidate pool. And then the companies who are like, oh, well, a recruiter is expensive. We don't want to pay that money. They're going to send out an engineer to go recruit because, well, that's the guy that does the job, right? Or that's the manager that does the job. They should know best what kind of people they're looking for. But they're not a recruiter.
Yeah.
It's great that the guy knows how to build a bridge, but is he, some of those people aren't even good managers. They're just really good at being an engineer. They're really good at their job. And so you sent them to a career fair to represent your company, and they can't even put the tablecloth on straight. It's crooked on the oh God, it drives me crazy. I walk around before the career fair starts and straighten people's tablecloths out because I'm like, come on, it's your first impression right there. Your name's crooked on the table, ridiculous. So that's the kind of stuff that companies, when I realize you got your budgets, you don't, not everybody can afford, because the salary is not just a salary. You have fringe benefits and other things that go into it. So people are more expensive than just the salary on paper. But can you afford to have bad team members? For how long can you afford to have bad team members? For how long can you afford to not fill your open recs, right? And so, realizing that, also realizing that true HR, true talent manager isn't it's a busy job. There's a lot that goes into it. We talked about what my day-to-day, there's, a lot of times I go out and just taking pictures of what we do and checking in with our employees, because not all of them are going to reach out to me just like, hey, how's it going? Do you need anything? Do you need more uniforms? Can I get you? Is all your technology working? Are you happy? Like, do we need to bring you in, chat with the owners? So there's a lot more to it. But if your talent manager is also your secretary, is also your accountant, is also your construction worker, yeah, maybe they're not going to be good at their job because you literally gave them too much to do. So, recognizing when you expect a little too much from that person, set clear expectations for what is your talent manager going to do, because, depends. Sometimes you have to hire in large volume of people, right? And that's, it's just constant transactional. You're constantly reviewing resumes. You're constantly updating your job posts. You're doing so much. Sometimes, like I say, I do a little bit more niche recruiting, right? Because I recruit a higher level of candidate. They're a lot more skilled. There's a lot less. The candidate pool is much, much smaller. So I have to do a lot more outreach. And what I like to do when I'm not actively sourcing is I like to actively collect candidates. I like to connect with people. I promote our opportunities, or us as a company, so that people come to us. Because when I'm ready to fill a role, I think the last 2 or 3 roles that I filled, I didn't even have to really post it on Indeed. I had candidates.
That's really nice.
Yeah, the candidates that I had applied, and I said, hey, thank you so much. I want to keep this relationship. I'm going to hold on to your resume. Mm-hmm. I don't have an opportunity right now. And I do. And then when I'm ready, I have a list of people that I just literally call back up and I say, hey, we talked a couple of months ago. I really liked you. I just didn't have an opportunity for you right now. But now I do. Do you want to interview? Sometimes people already found a job. They don't want to talk to you, and that's okay. And some people are like, oh, heck yeah, absolutely. I've been waiting for this call. This is what I want to do. I wanted to join your company. So, sometimes not everybody gets, I'm going to brag, not everybody gets to be part of a company that's so well known and so well respected. And, I can't take credit for building this company, right? For having this culture, but take a little bit of credit for selling it.
Yeah, absolutely.
Yeah.
Selling it
You
to
can
other
take credit
people.
for maintaining it.
Yeah.
Maintaining it as well. So not everybody is blessed with that opportunity, or sometimes, had a recent experience where a recruiter reached out to me and they're like, hey, we have this really cool opportunity. We want to talk to you. And you know me, I don't say no to an interview. So here I go into this interview and I'm like, so what are you guys looking for? And they're like, well, actually, like, our team is really good at what they do of recruiting wise. Like they're hitting their numbers. We have a great candidate pool, but we just don't have a good culture. And hitting metrics is one thing. Like that's, you can just make adjustments and start spending more money on advertising your positions, or I don't know, advertise on different job boards. But changing a culture in a team, that can be a lot of work. That can take a long time. So is your expectation you're going to hire somebody and 2 weeks later everything's just honky dory and perfect? No, like that's silly. So setting clear expectations for yourself, what you expect this person to do, and be able to communicate. If you're going to be adding, you're going to say, okay, this podcast really changed my mind. I can't wait to get myself a talent manager. They're going to make a big difference in my life and for my business. What are your expectations? I think being clear and saying, okay, I realize that it's going to take some time for us to do all these things. And some people are just not fortunate enough to work for companies that have a great culture. Or they might have had something good and then they went through that leadership change and now it's no longer good. And now you're coming in and trying to, fix the bad that happened. Now you're trying to sell a company and everybody's like, oh, don't work for them. They're terrible. I used to work for them. They were awful. That can be hard. Not everybody is fortunate enough to be selling a company that's awesome, that they love to be a part of that team. And sometimes that does require a little bit of work. And I think, again, use the owner, use the recruiter. If you're going into that, you have to recognize that. You have to know, you have to be smart enough to ask the right questions. When you do, at the end of that interview, they're like, what questions do you have? Ask those questions. Why are you guys looking to fill this position? What are your goals in the next year? What are your expectations? And then listen to to what that employer is saying, because if that employer is like, oh, well, we haven't really thought about it, it's probably a red flag. maybe don't take a job with them because they're going to expect you to do everything.
I love it. Well, you do have talent to manage. I mean, you do have a job we need to let you get back to, but I personally have one more question.
I had one question as well.
Perfect. So we'll do kind of a rapid fire.
We'll make it quick, yeah.
So it seems like you're a really driven person. I mean, you talked about you knew kind of what you wanted out of university and college, and then you made the decision to move to Memphis. You seem driven, and that makes me think you've received some really good advice along the way. What's the best piece of advice you've ever gotten?
I think the best piece of advice that I've gotten, and this is going to sound absolutely terrible, is to recognize that not everybody is on the same level as you are, whatever it may be. But the advice that was given, I'm going to just go ahead and paraphrase it here because did not sound quite as nice as what I'm about to say. But basically, not everybody is as bright as you are. Recognizing that everybody thinks a little bit differently. The way that I've translated that to myself is recognizing that just because you're on step 10 doesn't mean that everybody else is, and checking in with people. And that's just more like in the workplace, really. Recognizing that every team member has a different strength, and everybody thinks a little bit differently. So I'm one of those people that I play chess in my own head, and then I got to step 10 and I'm like, here's your solution. And some people need you to walk them through the problem. They don't need they like the solution, but they need to walk through the problem with you. You can't walk through the problem by yourself in your own head and then just give them a solution, because they're going to be frustrated with you. You're going to be frustrated with them. So, but my free advice that I give to especially college students, and it's going to be silly, and I really, you guys take this with a grain of salt, but I go to college students, they love it. It's always funny, is wear comfortable underwear to your interviews. Because comfort is confidence. And if you are comfortable, you're going to be just a little bit more confident in your interview.
I like it.
That's great advice.
That is a great one.
You mentioned earlier about giving credit to Gen Z, and I know a lot of people crap on Gen Z, like it's easy to do. Do you see a lot of promise from these college students and Gen Z coming into the workforce at these career fairs you go to?
100%.
I love it.
I will say millennials, we were halfway there. Gen Z has taken us to the next step. My favorite thing is to listen to people gripe about, Gen Z, millennials too, but the younger generation, right? And the gripe is always, well, they're lazy. They don't want to work hard. They don't want to grind. Let me tell you right now, these are the most productive. The productivity level for these young people is off the charts. They do more in their one day than you 20, 30 years ago did in your entire week. So stop with the griping. Stop with the, they don't grind. Reality is most of us don't give 100% of the time. It's not possible. You just can't do that. You'll burn out immediately. Mm-hmm. But being upset with the fact that people just are more efficient now more than ever. I think that a lot of employers will say, again, 20, 30 years ago, and even, again, millennial here, we were taught, ask for what is growth. When I was graduating college, the advice that was given to us was every time you go up to a company, you ask them, what does the career ladder look like? Where am I going to go from here? What is this opportunity going to do for me in the next step? Those were the questions that we were taught to ask, right? How am I going to get to the next salary step? And now the questions that the college students ask me is, what is your company doing to be better, to engage the community? What opportunities do I have to be better for myself and for my community, right? Like, not just where is this job going to take me and how much is it going to pay me, but how can I contribute to something greater than myself? And they care a lot more. I think they're putting a lot more employers on the spot. I think a lot of employers just never had to think about that kind of stuff, and now they do. And I think that realizing that we used to, our work style used to be counting hours and watching somebody sit at their desk for 8 hours, and you go, aha, that guy's working. He's here. He took one less bathroom break than the guy next to him. So obviously he's working so much harder. We really, as employers, we need to shift from that mentality to having a mentality of managing tasks. And a lot of us fail to create a workplace that is task-oriented, whereas Gen Zers, millennials too, but Gen Zers really are coming out and saying, Why am I wasting my time sitting here when I could be doing something else? They are task oriented. And so creating, and this goes back to, I think, why a lot of employers struggle with remote work. They cannot create a workplace that manages tasks. They had a workplace where they manage time. And so, well, how do I know they're not doing their laundry on my time? Gasp. Like, come on. It's being ridiculous because you never made expectation of time. And guess what? If your employee took 6 hours to complete the tasks and you're paying them for 8, well, they're just that much more efficient. Aren't you excited? That means that maybe you have an opportunity to maybe give them more tasks or, I don't know, give them a pay, recognize their efficiency. Gen Zers are amazingly efficient. They are bright. They are driven. And we have to figure out a way to talk to them in a way that recognizes that efficiency, that creativity, and that drive. Because I'm telling you right now, I look at those resumes and these guys are part of clubs. They volunteer, they work, they play sports, they take a bunch of college classes. In those classes, they're completing a bunch of projects. The expectations for them are so great. I mean, honestly, I looked at my own college resume not so long ago. I was like, I was not nearly as productive as some of these kids coming out of school. And and they're all, and that's the expectation. And we're almost like, oh, you only did 100 million things while you were in college and getting, a 4.0 GPA. How dare you? So, recognizing that we have a workforce that is just literally going to work not harder. They're just going to be more efficient than we are, and giving them credit for that.
Yeah, we have a phrase around here where we say work smart, not hard. Like it doesn't matter how hard you're working. It's, are you being efficient with your time? Are you getting it done? You don't want to have just somebody sitting here miserable, like, oh, well, I've just got to clock the hours. Like, get your tasks done and have clear messaging of what you're doing.
Absolutely.
Yep.
Absolutely. I think recognizing that working smart, not hard, should not be punished, but encouraged.
Yeah.
Yeah,
absolutely.
Well, Nelli, we want to thank you for coming on the show. This has been a pleasure talking
been
about
awesome.
workforce and hiring. This has been an unexpected joy, actually, just like how the conversation evolved. Yeah.
Yeah. Thank you, guys. This has been delightful. I really enjoyed it.
Okay. Before we go, can you tell us a little bit about how we can find out more about you, about GTG?
Yeah, absolutely. So I am on LinkedIn. Feel free to follow or connect with me. I was going to say, I saw on the list of questions about, different things that you can do to be better. And LinkedIn is a great, great resource. But if you look me up, Nelli Golmeeva, I do spell my first name as Nelli. Don't have a Y or an E at the end.
Okay.
So it's a little different, but a last name is spelled just how you hear it, Golmeeva. And Grinder, Taper Grinder, we're a little bit on everything. I'm just going to do a little brag that one of our Instagram posts just blew up not too long ago. So
Nice.
We're Insta famous now. But you can find us on our website, and you can actually look and see the open positions that we have. We're actually, our application for our 2024 summer internship program is currently open. So any college students or parents of college students that are listening that, want to encourage to apply, that can be done online, and it's just grindertabor.com. That's our website. But yeah, we're on LinkedIn, Instagram, Facebook. What is it? Twitter, X. Thank you. Yeah, you can find us anywhere on there, and you can read a little bit more about our company culture and our history. It's all on our wonderful, beautiful website.
Oh, there's the closing bell.
That was good.
Man, I am channeling my inner court right now. You've reached the end of yet another exciting episode on the Bullcast podcast. If you enjoyed what you heard and want more, simply head to your favorite subscription service. We're available on all of them, and sign up to have our podcast delivered directly to your favorite listening device every single Thursday at noon. I feel like I should have this memorized. I kind of do,
We're just
actually.
so used to Court doing it.
Want to learn more about Katie Pickler or Court or myself? You can visit our website for detailed bios. While you're there, drop us a comment, suggest topics, recommend a guest, or even express your interest in being a guest. We're all ears, and we'll get back to you promptly. That website is bullcastpodcast.com. Do you like pictures? We've got pictures. Follow us on Instagram at Bullcast Podcast, or Facebook, or on X at Bullcast Podcast. We're everywhere, Katie. Last but not least, we're proud to work at a place called Pickler Wealth Advisors. If you're curious about what we do and how our fantastic team, led by David Pickler, can help you, visit picklerwealthadvisors.com.
That's advisors with an O.
Not an E. Katie, we're good at swapping places sometimes. I think we've given you all the tools you need to succeed. So go forth and conquer. But for now, I'm Cam.
I'm Katie.
I'm Nicole.
I'm Nellie.
See you later.